diorama's. They were a big table encased in a glass case. Someone had made a picture representation of a seaport, a railroad area, another part of the town, and something else. They were fascinating to me. So instead of remembering the art, I remember that. So I don't know how that fits in. Probably does. And let's see here, what else? Okay. Now my father, he had an interest in photography. Okay? And we lived in a really small house. And the back on this, not so small when I was a kid, but it was a slab house, no basement. But my father somehow fashioned dark in the house. Didn't utility. Anybody ever heard the term utility room? Okay. And in the utility room is your washer and your dryer, your furnace, the hot water heater. And my mom had a kitchen table in there where we would eat warm meals during the week. We would eat in there. Somehow my father was able to build a dark room in there to process his photographs. I remember very well, almost as if I were there right now. One time he let me in with him while he was doing his work. Two things were very, very interesting. One was the smell of chemicals. Remember that was strange thing. And another was the only light in that space was a red light. The red light will not activate the film or activate the paper that the film's going to be printed on. So it's kind of, here I am, 7 years old, I smell the chemicals. Buck's doing these strange things. You've got molds of this, and you dump it in the chemicals. So we would process the negatives. We put them in they call it an enlarger. And the enlarger would be a light shining down on the face below it, is where you put the photographic paper, a white piece of paper. Put the light on for some amount of time. You knew how long it worked. And okay, when it was done, the light went off. He had this white piece of paper. And he went over to his tray with his chemicals, and he slipped the paper in the tray of chemicals, whatever it was. And much to my amazement, slowly this image started appearing on this white piece of paper. But imagine us after all was kind of blown away by this particular event. So that kind of stuck with me. And you'll see the photography thing kind of raise its head. And from my mother's point of view, I remember now she used to, believe it or not, would paint with oil paint, transparent oil paint on these black and white pictures of photography. And she would turn a picture of me or herself, or maybe it's a scene outside somewhere. She would color it, and I was kind of amazed. Because back then, it may have been color photography, but it was way beyond the reach of when it first was too expensive to process. So, I guess you could say there is a little bit of connection by the painting on photography and my father processing photography. And one last thing. The last thing in grade school that I remember about art was in 6th grade, Mrs. Erickson had us do an art project. I made a watercolor painting of the Grand Canyon, a picture of the book. Okay, didn't think much of it. It doesn't look like a big mess to me, just a bunch of colors that I kind of floated down there trying to represent what I saw. But, much to my amazement, the teacher made a big deal about this. Okay, so that's probably the only painting I've ever done before later on in my life. So there's kind of a small connection to what's going on. So then I moved into my high school years, and I had an art class in 7th or 8th grade. But then the rest of the time, there were no electives in art. All my classes were geared towards science, mathematics, geometry, those kinds of things. And geometry was my favorite subject. I love geometry because it was logical. You had to prove theorems and this and that, and it's like you're kind of playing with reality. So I thought that was kind of cool. So I graduated in 1967 from high school. I should say this, I've been very lucky in my life. Gods have smiled upon me when the time is right and an opportunity comes, and I take advantage of it. This opportunity was steel mills just before they closed. I was able to get a 4-year scholarship to the local university, Youngstown State University. I probably wouldn't have gone to college if I hadn't got it. So that's pretty interesting. But there was no art, so to speak, in my high school days. So in 1967, I graduated from high school. In the fall of '67, I go to Youngstown State. Major is physics. Well, that's kind of strange. That is nothing to do with art. Then think about the time. You guys remember the '60s. That was the hippie days. Everybody was having fun. Free love and all this kind of stuff. Here I am. I'm going to major in physics. It put me definitely in the nerd category. Everybody else is having fun, and I'm studying, laws of motion, theory of relativity, and all that kind of stuff. So there was never an opportunity to take, even did I have the interest in taking an art class as an elective. The only thing in that 4-year period that I had any connection whatsoever to art was tangentially. My freshman year, I had to take 2 calculus classes. It was held in a building, kind of a small building, just off campus. We were on the 2nd floor. We had 2 classes. So, first floor in the basement was the art department. So that's the closest I got to art while I was in college. And think about the fact that this was the art department, and it didn't even have its own building on the campus. It was kind of relegated to whatever was available. So here again, high school and college, not much to do with art. So pretty much the art thing is not really materialized yet. Okay, now I graduated from college in late 1971, and I had to find a job because I just had a baby. So fortunately, the gods were smiling, and I landed a job at Goodyear in 1972 as a mechanical engineer. I asked this up there because, once again, I didn't quite fit into what was going on in the situation. I was thankful to have a job, but I had a job as a mechanical engineer, not trained as a physicist. They're like holding water. Engineers are practically oriented. They work on things, the everyday world design and things. Physics is more of a theoretical analysis type situation. So the first couple of years, I was having a little difficulty finding my place within this environment. Thankfully, my boss realized that, and he gave me an opportunity to kind of go off in a slightly different direction. That because it really led me into the whole direction that I really enjoyed. Yeah. I took a while. Okay, here's a photograph. Oh, I forgot to mention some knowledge pitch up here. This rather strange looking fellow in the foreground is me, back when I had dark hair. Still that weird. This kind of TV-like screen that you see there is the design system that we're used to design tread patterns for tires. That's the niche of the tire design market that I got involved. Tread pattern is what you see on your tire. You see the pit in the snow or the mud, you see the tread pattern. The tread pattern has a lot to do with how a tire performs. But it also has a design for kind of artistic terms to it. Because tire, you're selling it to somebody buy your car, it has to look like it performs the task it's designed for. Snow tires look a certain way, summer tires look a certain way. And this particular tire here this. This is the project I worked on. So I kind of feel honored to be kind of one of the first. You know, subject that not many people do. Now, this thing off to the right is WikiDig. Does anyone here remember the show in the 50s called WikiDig? No? I just happen to have my WikiDig going. WikiDig is this cartoon character down at the bottom area there. And the show was from 1953, 1957. And the gist of the show was there was a man, a real person, talking to WikiDig, this cartoon character, and they would have various stories every week of the TV show. The real interesting part about WikiDig is it is probably the first interactive TV show that ever existed, because to really take advantage of WikiDig, you had to have the WikiDig kit. In the kit were plastic crayons, lightweight cloth to erase, and this is the important thing, a clear sheet of plastic that you affixed to your TV screen. Well, maybe some kids tried it without the TV, without the mask. Probably that's all their parents. And what would happen is WikiDig would get in some kind of a jam, needed help, and the man would tell us, "Got to help me out." What I remember was being chased by something. I don't know, it was dogs, wolves, lions, bears, or Indians, who know what it was. But he's trying to get away from them. He comes to the end of this cliff, drops off, and this is too far away to jump. So they asked him, let's draw a bridge so he can get across there. So he draw on the screen a bridge. And he would walk across it, get to the other side, and now erase it. So whatever was chasing him would not be able to make it. So I still remember that. Now, to me, drawing on the screen, who knows that was going to happen? This was probably the mid to late 70s when I was doing this. So there's kind of finish. That's what I was about to say one other thing. There was another TV show. Probably there are a lot of people who do this. John Davies Learn to Draw. Yeah. I played with that a little bit. I found that interesting, but I didn't pursue it anymore. So, but it was fascinating how he broke down the drawing process, simplified it, made it attainable by the average person like myself. So. Okay, now let's fast forward to the year 1980. 1980, I'm 31, going on 32. This is much, except for that watercolor in 6th grade, this is how much art I've done. This is how much thought I've put into art. So it's a boy, I'm at least 40% of the way through my life. Nothing started yet. So, in the late summer or early fall, out of nowhere, I call it the Big Bang event. How many of you are familiar with the term Big Bang? It's kind of like the astrophysicists would describe the beginning of the universe as a big explosion 13.5 billion years ago. Okay? So this was a big artistic explosion in our life. And the event was, we were living in Stark County. Yeah, look back to Youngstown, because there's a friend of mine who had a knew he was an artist, but I didn't give it much thought. But one time we walked into the living room, on the wall was this painting. It was like, I saw it, I was like drawn identically over there, take a look at this thing. And it was just amazing to me. It was a painting he'd done of his son who was sitting out in the field somewhere in front of the woods behind him. And it was so amazing to me, very realistic. And more importantly, it didn't have this air of preciousness that meetings had, like in a museum. And you can't get close to it. If you get too close, the speaker comes on and says, please stand away from the meeting. That kind of stuff. And another thing that's interesting is this wasn't some mysterious famous person in New York City or Paris or something that made a painting. This is a person I knew, a person just like me. I couldn't get that thought out of my mind. And another issue was did that like I could remember, she asked what I wanted for Christmas. So I said, I get a set of beans, it's Russian or something like that. And she got that for me for Christmas. That was the beginning of my art having a big bang. So I remember trying to do my first painting. Needless to say, it was a total disaster. Total disaster. I had no idea what I was doing. Harry got very discouraged, but I still had that. I couldn't bring it tonight because it's too embarrassing to show it, but I had no idea how to color brushes, everything was raw. It was that's terrible. But I didn't give up. There's got to be something I can learn about this. So I went to the library and just brought out some how-to books, step-by-step exercises. And believe it or not, it actually gave me a little bit of a foothold in how to put a painting together. I could see the process at all. But I quickly realized that alone wasn't going to be enough. I had to pay more. So I started taking classes. And here's a list, a short list of teachers that I took classes from. I don't know if you recognize any names up there. The first class I took was a sweet lady, Marvin Styles. We were living in California then, and she owned her husband owned the local framing and art supply store. And I was in there buying supplies and got to talk. And she said, "Oh yeah, we have classes going Thursday night." So I did, and that was the beginning of my art education. I think the first meeting I did was a still life that she had set up. So that was the beginning. I took classes with Judah Currency and Benny Elliott, both from North Canton. Mark Moon, wonderful artist, fantastic artist. That character he was. Took classes from him. Linda Tompkin. Linda and I crossed paths later in life. Dino Massaroni and Carolyn Lewis, took classes from them. Both good artists. And probably the longest art class taker was with Jack Richard. Anybody know Jack Richard from Paddock Falls? I kind of refer to him as my art father, so to speak. I went to classes probably about 9 years on Tuesday night in his studio. Jack was a character too. He's talking about this fall. He's always whistling, and he's just a fun guy. He'd start off the lecture with a lecture. He'd start off the class with a lecture. Gave a little short demonstration. Tell some crazy stories that I probably heard 18 times during the time, the 9 years I was there. But he kind of started to instill education. I give him a lot of credit for doing that. My time. Then I started branching out into different workshops. The workshop went through at Austin Hills, Suffolk County. Al Sprague, excellent watercolorist. Mark Hanson, Tim Horn, more recently, Mark Hanson was in Peninsula. Tim Horn was in Yellow Springs, Ohio. That's where he was from. I love his work. I think Janet, you probably know Tim Horn, right?
No, it's Mark Hanson.
Marvin Kessler. I had her one of the books that I took a workshop with her in Sedona. Excellent, great place to go. And probably my most interesting and fun event was a 2-week workshop done in New Mexico at the Seattle Academy of Real Art. And the first week was in Taos, New Mexico. We painted outside. I was overwhelmed by all the color, so it was a challenge. The second week was in Abiquiu, New Mexico. Abiquiu is the home of Ghost Ranch. And Ghost Ranch is where Georgia O'Keeffe had her place. She stayed out, she stayed there until she passed on. And we got a chance to tour her property and all that stuff. Got to see some of the sites where she actually painted some things. So that was my workshop period. Then, last but certainly not least, I had the pleasure of getting to know Judy Carducci. I consider her as my mentor, a close friend. Learned a lot from her. You know, I think when she sneezes, she gets more about art than I ever do in my life. And she's actually written 2 books. The process pretty much got finished and we're going to get published. So you might get a chance to read about her autobiography and see some of her work. Thanks, Judy. Here, I had to throw this in. This is my first art show. When I was still going to Art Styles class in Alpha. Very nice studio, or a nice gallery. A snow fence out in that park. These are some paintings I had done. Some of those were actually painted from art book that I had seen, so I was, just involved in everything. Actually, I had my first sale at this show. And it was an interesting experience. It was, I had a small painting of Trevor Bridge that I had done. And up walks this young man and his girlfriend, and they stop and she starts looking at it and talking about it. Said, I'd like to buy that. What do you prepared for that? I asked him $5. So okay, I'll take it. Gave me the money. That was cool. And then the bad thing happened. She walked away with the piece. It was like one of my children. So I think that's to be a catch-up experience. It's nice to have sale, but sometimes this to this day have other situations like that. So now the next major milestone in my art career has to do with joining the Afghan Society of Artists. I was suggested to join this group by Jack Richard, my teacher. First heard about it. I knew about a little bit about the Society of Artists. They were well stocked with quality professional artists. I said, well, I can't handle that. I said, no, I'll go ahead and try. So I did. I listened to them and I joined. And really accelerated my growth as an artist. Now, art classes taught me how to the mechanics of how to paint those kinds of things. But being a member of ASA taught me how to be an artist. There's a big difference between painting and being an artist. And during the time, and I'm still with the group, it transformed me from being a student to being an artist. Just a lot. And now, I remember, I know distinctly the day that happened. I moved from the artist world to the student version of the artist to the artist version of the artist on November 10th, 1988. The reason I know that is I kept a diary of my painting experiences. How many hours I put in on painting, what some of my problems were, like I did back when I was in Jackson class, and things like that. And I started reading through this, and I came across, put my glasses on, Tuesday, February 10th. I'm in jazz class tonight. I worked on a P number 139. I numbered it, but it was double for an hour and a half. Again, working on the upper portion of the painting. Jack had given me several suggestions. All of them good, yes. Then I started to feel I'm in control of this. Instead of following my instincts, which may be wrong, but at least I was doing what I thought should be done. So then at the end it says, so I think I'll keep this painting at home until I feel it was done. So that was what that said was, we're going to take Jack's advice on how to do pages. To me, that jumped me from being a student, just following what the teacher wanted me to do, was what decisions that I would make to do my own painting. To me, that was a milestone, but I didn't. Thank God I kept it better, but I forgot about that. Now, another quote, this is from my most admired artist, Keith. And I found this online. It was a black and white video that she had done. She's still alive at the time. I loved what she said here. I thought someone could tell me how to paint. I never found that person. I just had to sit down and try. I thought someone could try, but nobody could. They could tell me how to paint their painting. They could tell me how to paint mine. To me, there's a lot of power. So, this is my diagram. Is my Georgia Keith moment. Okay, fast forward in time. I'm still taking classes. Well, not so much classes, but I said learning a lot. One thing I will go is with all these professional artists, soaking in everything that I can and growing as an artist. Now what? Retirement in Goodyear. February of 2014, I had finished 42 years working for Goodyear as an engineer. I hardly ever worked there. The reason is, that old adage is, you love your job, never work a day in your life. And I love my job. I really, really love it. I got to get to the world. I got to go back to my mother's hometown, France, work with the company in Paris. So I got a lot of opportunities to do a lot of interesting work. I meet a lot of interesting people. But now, what am I going to do? One things in my life is done, and now there's something else that's going to come up. Once again, the gods are smiling at me. They throw me a bone. A new career in the Group 10 gallery. They've heard this, but Carol was a member of the Group 10 gallery. A little history about how that got formed. Benefactor for Richard Gallery was a man named Marvin. He was a mover and shaker kind of businessman in town. He was largely responsible for the renovation of downtown Kent from the old style run-down buildings. They got very modernized, made it into a very interesting, fun place to be, very lively place. He knew he wanted to have an art presence in town, so he financed the place for our retail gallery on one location, and he ended up buying some work from us. So, and he made the rent cheap enough for us so we could survive. To be honest, day one, we had to pay real rent for that space. Thankfully, he saw the importance of that and made that opportunity for not just me, but a lot of artists that were famous that I knew. Tom Leonard, John Smolka, Victor Joseph, John Smolka. But being at Group 10, I learned about the business side of the article. So I've kind of come full circle. People not having any interest in art whatsoever, dabbling at it, to growing. I take classes, workshops, joining the Afghan Society of Artists, learning from other professional artists, and then finally coming into an environment where now I'm learning the business side. How to hang a show, how to judge shows, I'd have openings. Early on, like 2 or 3 months into my time there, I took over taking care of all the finances for the organization, deposit money, taxes, and all that kind of stuff. The guy that I took the job from says, don't let them have me keep this job more than a year. You know? I kept it all the way till we get actually out of business. But it was such a great experience. Got to meet a lot of wonderful people, came to our shows. Kind of fell in love with downtown Kent. I've never spent much time there in my life, but Kent was kind of a very charming place. Very similar to the dining in that sense. People out walking around, young students, so it was very lively. And then I also started to sell my art. Up until that time, 2014, I think I sold 5 or 6 paintings. Nothing serious, but I think during the 6 years that I was with Group 10, and I'm not saying this is correct, but I sold 26 paintings. That's a lot of art. And the reason it happened is I got it from the public. If I were more painting from my house, looks like online, but you know, that's not going to attract attention. You need my paintings up in front of people when they walk in, see what was going on. People knew what my style was. They started to find a small segment. First of all, 1% of the population is interested in art and buying. They usually got to have some expendable income to put toward that. Well, Canada's not exactly known as a lower place, but I was able to attract enough people that I had actually collectors. And it wasn't so much the money, because it wasn't the money that I sold them. But what it does is it validates my choices of subject matter. That was very, very important to me. Even if I didn't make a sale, they out in the gallery sitting, walking around with somebody that were looking, he would make a comment about it. He said it made him feel a certain way. Oftentimes, that feeling was what I wanted to convey to the public. Yes, that's something. I had my first major exhibition at Group 10. This is in late summer of 2014, called Common Observations. This is a painting that I've done. It doesn't look that way in reality, but that's on the screen. This is a drag line, big earth quarries. They dig the earth out with pockets. I happened upon this one sunny winter afternoon down near DeVore, Ohio, and it was something that I liked to be successful in, and I was remember this first opportunity. Now, how do I gather my inspiration? Why do I gather the inspiration that you gather? What do they? I kind of describe it this way. I let my artistic eye talk to me. Mysterious and strange, but to me, it's like a Zen-like vision, like being in the moment. You know, our brains and our eyes work together, and we see the world in front of us. But you can't comprehend all the details of everything you see. So your brain kind of makes symbols. So I see there's a bunch of people in front of me right now, but I don't know what they look like, or stuff like that. And if you get away from that symbolic view of the world, look at the world, focus in on something, pay attention to it, you'll be surprised at what you find. That is that's part of my process for subject matter. So oftentimes you'll see me, especially in the winter times, there's no leaves in the trees. You'll see me, I'll be driving around in the country or in the city. When the conditions are right, by that I mean usually it's the late afternoon light. I try to pay attention to what's around me, and I get my subject matter from those trips. I can tell you some of these here I can talk about how I do that. And I look for underdog subjects. Remember that reference I made when I was a young boy about underdog sports teams? Well, it's hard to make flowers look more beautiful than they are in reality. So that, personally, that doesn't offer much of a challenge because the best I can do, I'd like to use good looking as they are, but no better. So what I like to do, and I'm not saying it's not great to make flowers, but I like to find a subject that is kind of mundane, but based on certain conditions that are just right. They have what Andy Warhol used to say, your 15 minutes of fame that everybody has. That's what I look for when I'm driving around or walking around or looking for something better. I really still enjoy doing it that way. And I have to make a confession. Doesn't surprise you. I talked about my father. I use a camera to do this. Depending on where you come from, it's good. I understand completely the cameras do not represent reality very well. Unless you're really an extremely good photographer, you've got the right focal lengths, all the technical jargon that goes on with it. Photograph off. But even if the perfect photographer does his job, no, he's capable of handling the wide range, the range of values. It's either going to show the lights very well, it's going to show the darks very well. So you can't take the photograph that's a true representation. If you just copy the photograph, that was a good photograph. But the pro to me is when I'm driving around and looking for subject matter, like I said, I like to find out that brief moment where the sunlight's just right, casting a shadow just right on an object. It excites me. Stop my car and take my truck. I couldn't do that. I'm not smart enough to do that. Like holding it in my mind, going home and trying to remember what I saw. As an engineer, I want to represent what I saw relatively accurately. But I also want to remember the excitement through me in the picture before things. So a camera is really good at that. Then I how to use it correctly. And this quote really sums up my feelings about how I do. Colleen Browning, I didn't know her before, but I saw a show, Colleen Browning worked in Butler 5-6 years ago. This quote was written, put a little card beside one of the paintings. I think very, very profound, at least from my point of view. The seed of every painting I do is some sudden, direct revelation. A decisive moment with some ordinary, banal event becomes vital and significant, like momentary juxtaposition of ingredients. And that's like the beauty of catch, like catching a con with a race spot. You've got a really good subject. It excites you as an artist, you're going to excite the viewer. That scene. But I love this book. I kind of keep going on all this. Now, I've come a long way. I consider myself a real artist. Didn't for the longest time, but I do now. Now, rewards being an artist, one of them is to learn to really see the world around you. Again, quit looking at things as symbols and start looking at things for how they really are. There's a lot of interesting stuff. If you look in your living room, you see what your living room is much bigger. But look by a window, there's light coming in the window and it's on a lamp or something like that, and there's something in it. So learning to really see is part of this key of success in making paintings. And learning to see is both literally and figuratively. Literally, I mean, like I just described about the painting, but figuratively, I found in my experience that we artists that I live in now, we seem to look at the world in a similar way too. We all have a similar world view. So there's got to be something about the mystery, the psychology of art that kind of unifies people. I find it very rewarding. Now, also rewarding thing is the ability to communicate with others, feeling contributed that something interesting. it's so rewarding. Getting to know and associate with other artists. It's just amazing how many people I've worked with over the years. Now I get to meet a lot of new people that are wonderful people, and the best people on earth. And I get to experience what I call the artist bliss. That they just turn up. But by that, I mean, bliss is the definition of great joy, so as to be oblivious of everything else. I'll bet you, are doing that, that you're painting, you're kind of transported away from reality, you're in your zone, time stops, not a care in the world, you just enthralled by that process. That the painting process is its own reward. Everything else after that is just icing on the cake. Now the last slide here is lessons learned, what I call universal truths. I'm not a good enough painter to give advice on how to color and all that stuff. Everybody heard this times, so I'm not going to be able to preach knowledge about that. But I will share these, what I call universal truths about painting, what it does for you. And you might be able to take some of this to heart, and if not, so be yourself. That's a very important thing. That's again part of the process of learning to be an artist as opposed to a student. And the quote by Oscar Wilde is a really appropriate one. It says, "You have to be yourself. Everybody else is taken." Yep. Isn't that true? And and the art in you reflects your inner being. Whatever's inside you, everybody's different. They have their own experiences. They look at their own relationships with things. It comes out when you paint. You can't help it. People say, how do I develop a style? As far as I'm concerned, you can't avoid developing a style. It's just like handwriting. People can recognize your work. If they've seen it a couple times, I'll recognize your work. So, you have to worry about that. Trust your artistic vision. Confidence comes from learning to embrace your personal artistic vision as valid. I was a student. I was always trying to be a teacher. I was always trying to make it look like the photograph I had or whatever. So much. But again, you have something to say, you want to say it a certain way, you have to start believing that what you have to say is really valid. And a good example, Afghan Society of Artists often has critiques. And they're very well attended. A lot involved in us. And you hear kind of the same kind of performance about paintings from time to time. And I learned that people really like loose style painting. Peter likes it. I like it. But I can't do it. Like I say, I tried to do it, but I think I'm not being honest with myself. That's not my mentality. I wish it a little bit, but I feel better when I paint the way I feel I want to communicate. There's an example of the painting that I did. One of my favorites. The comment that I can say that has been said many times in critiques of the essay is, you don't have to paint every brick. No, I don't. Correct. You don't have to paint every brick. And there are excellent ways of suggesting brick without painting every brick. That's perfectly valid. No argument whatsoever. I really got off doing this. Crazy, isn't it? I don't know, this is my engineering background, but every brick is in place, and every brick's a little bit different from the other one. So you gotta have a high tolerance for paint to put up with this stuff. And I was rewarded. And this is a G play. The original was sold at the lady bought it at retail. But I asked her if I could make a display of things more left so that I can still hang them all over the house. So again, this is me. There's probably not a lot of people out there. There's something that it's not for everybody. It's for me. So find out what you like and do that. That's going to lead to success. Paint what interests you. You like painting animals. You like painting flowers, landscapes, still lifes, whatever. Portraits. I'm terrible with that. I just kind of stay away from it. I don't show my weaknesses. But if that's what you like to do, go for it. And have something to say with me. In our critiques in the city, I'm a critique leader. I'm more interested in what it was that, what the subject, how the subject was chosen by the artist. Did they feel that they communicate what they're feeling with art? Some people have been responsible, other people feel like, they really didn't have a thought they were painting. There's nothing wrong with that. But to me, what separates painting from something more deeper is having something to say and actually saying. And what you have to say to me is more important than how the technique you use to make it. I often say I would rather see technical issues that conveys a message very clearly, as opposed to one that is repeated precisely. It doesn't have much to say. I've done some of those. I have a painting home in Brand that's painting the interior of a pocket watch, 1889. It's a watch company. I did that because I wanted to pay homage to the people that made those watches. It's an artwork in itself inside the case of that watch. Most people would never see it. So I had to pay homage to it. And it's very kind of photorealistic as much as I can pull that on. But that's not necessarily the way I did it. And very important. I hope I don't misrepresent the situation here. Be open to new ideas. Don't be a perpetual student. That goes back to my time in Jack Richard's class. So it's time you have to try to please the teacher, learn as much as you can, but now you've got to cut yourself loose from that. A good teacher will recognize that and then learn to pursue your own. So that's, to me, that's very important as well. I think that's it. Let's see, how are we doing time-wise?
Oh, I forgot to vote. I promised I would. Oh, it's only quarter after 8.
Can you go another 10, 15 minutes? Is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about some of these paintings that I've done here.
You're not going to use the screen anymore, right?
No.
Okay, I'm going to turn the light on.
Okay.
See the okay. Yeah.
Yep. Now the painting that I referred to in my diary is this painting right here. This is the one that Jack always had wanted to go in his direction. I got tired of being taken in the direction I didn't want to go, and I kind of cut loose. So there's something going on here I was trying to solve. But this painting is solved. Walk my wife and I took a mile from our house. We live in North Canton, near to the countryside, and we walk down this hill and we go by this farm. I've driven by the farm hundreds of times. It's a white building, reality. But this one day we were walking by and noticed that the doors were open, which I never usually were. These big fans were there, and I think this is a barn where they raise dairy cattle, keep the place cool down. Okay. So my wife and I are walking. I look look at it. And I walked about 20 feet. I stopped, came back, said, picture of this. So, you know, all these shapes kind of cool. So that was the reason I chose this as a subject. And I obviously changed the color of everything. It was a boring white. It was like these lines weren't there and stuff. But this was my interpretation of that momentary tension grabbing image that my eyes happened to detect. So I was really happy with this. The title of this meeting is Phantasmagoria. It's a bunch of colorful shapes and colors. I still like that painting. It's probably the biggest one I've ever done. Another painting that I did is this gas meter one that Carol first saw. The title of this was Classical Gas. There's a music song, I remember classical, I can't remember that position with it, but how this came to be is when I was working in Goodyear, the buddies and I would go sometimes to a Arby's in Ohio. One day, we were sitting at the table by the window. Up to my left was a parking lot where the cars. Just on the other side of the parking lot was this small industrial building. They had a bunch of gas meters outside, so they must be doing something with natural gas. I don't know what the process is. I never did find out. Looked at that. But by then it was before the sun had come over the roof of the building. I'm going to come back tomorrow. Later, since the sun started to come over the roof of that building, it starts cascading across the front of the gas meters. So I did it, came back, and took a lot of pictures of it. Pictures don't look like this, other than the fact that gas meters don't kind of look like that. The colors are totally different. And I've tried to show the sunlight just starting to break across the outside edges of the gas meters. What I liked about the gas meters are all a little bit different shape and stuff like that. Now I got Carol said you saw this and show it in some of our space. I think it was at the kaleidoscope or something.
Yeah.
And has anybody ever heard of the art critic of the academic journal, Dorothy Shin? Well, I lived in fear of Dorothy Shin. I didn't know what I was doing. Because I read her articles in the paper, and oftentimes she was slicing people up. And she wrote part of her story was this painting was done. Her and Dina would walk around the show, that's fine. And he liked it. And she said, oh, I wish he had done this. And it's so typically Midwestern. What would it be like New York or Paris? That's, you know, so that is why I should read these kind of comments. That's not a fair thing to judge. So you know, I had another painting later on, I forgot to bring that with me, but it was a painting of a big train that was really, really large. She loved that one, so I kind of felt she kind of made up for shooting me down for this one, but she liked the other one. So that was a nice time.
That was in the paper too, picture of that.
This one, yes, yes it was. Yes, it was. This painting here is overpass, Route 77, not far from where I live. I live near the Afghan airport, live within the airport. Route 77 is running this way, and Mount Pleasant Street runs underneath. This happened on a Sunday morning, night before we had this big snowstorm. Had like 12 inches of snow, big cloud and stuff. The next day the sun comes out. I'm driving up the road, and I looked up and I saw this. Yeah. Sparks are going off in my head. So now I gotta take a picture of this, but snow all over the place. So I had to go my car or someplace safe, and I had to pump through through the snow, and I took a shot of this viewpoint. And then again, I changed the colors and rearranged the snow. But really reminds me of my favorite. I remember it was in a show at the Cognitive Valley Arts Center. I think it won. I'll tell you this to brag that it won a prize. I remember walking around the show and there were ladies talking. They came up to this meeting. They didn't know what this stuff. What's this? They got a prize? So, you know, taste for taste. You know, don't like it, don't like it. But I felt good that someone recognized that. I think Mary Chersky was the judge of that show, and I respected Mary Chersky a lot and recognized something. The last one I'll talk about is this one here. This is a result of the business trip I took to Paris. That French company was so limited. And one day I was riding the Paris Metro at the time on and snapped a photograph of this train. This is one of the stops on the Metro. The photograph was very cool. Very little information, useful information was there. But I loved the geometry of the light that kind of drove me into this tunnel. So I wanted more information about it. So just so happened, a couple of years later, my wife and I had another trip to Paris for business. My wife went with me these times, and she enjoyed Paris. She enjoyed Paris, wanted to go singing and all that stuff. But I owe her big time on that. I said, I've got to find this location. I had no idea where it was. Think about that. I don't know, in there, I don't know. But we had one of these passes that we could ride for a week. So one ticket. So, true that she was, she hung in there with me. We got off every train station. And you know that old adage, you always find what you're looking for, the last place you look. Sure. It was literally almost the last flight. I'm about ready to give up. And this is by the elite area of Paris, only it's two. And they will take more pictures and find out more information what was going on back here and stuff. So I took all that, amalgamated all that together, and I was able to represent this. And I wanted to show Paris, busy kind of big, like person, people everywhere all the time. But I wanted to show 9:05 in the morning on a Sunday, there's that many people out there. So I represented, there were other people actually, but I wanted to show one lady kind of reading, walking in the light, going for the 9:05 is. And actually, I was in a show, Dino Massaroni had the national show. It was the name of that big exhibition. This was in it. I got accepted in the show. Very happy. And just so happened, somebody wanted to buy this. Now, again, I was excited. Just bought my money for $35. But my wife vetoed the sale. I figured, okay, rather something married that was somewhere. So of course, I had to tell the dentist that wanted to buy it. I had to tell him I couldn't sell it. I'd be happy to make another one for him if he thought maybe yes, but I never heard from him. But I think that's my letter. It wouldn't stick right now. So that's my program. I think I got it in just about an hour. Are there any questions? Anything?
I have a comment.
Yes.
When I saw your trainings, first thing that struck me was that you either had structural engineering background or architectural background. Just the way the paintings are. That's the impression I got.
Now you know after what I talked about, that's where it came from. Again, that's what's inside of me. And that's Thank you.
What's this? there's some drafting in there too.
Yes?
I'll have to know, what's the backstory that looks like the explosion?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what happened?
Believe it or not, we got the idea of this meeting. This is a place that's like literally 200 yards from my house. Field. It doesn't look at all like that. But there was this unusual cloud formation in the sky that drew my attention. There was the title of this piece of storm coming. There's a storm coming. And believe it or not, these finger-like things that are sticking out were actually there. It didn't look exactly like this, but that energy and the menacing storm coming out. With the sunlight turning across it, kind of how it does before it hits the finger. That's I like skies.
Yeah, they are.
And it's definitely not an engineering type subject, but like this is a more organic subject here. Well, that meeting, this one here, was started a long time ago. Didn't have enough experience and skill to pull it off. So they I had this like penalty box in my house, paintings that I'm not getting along with very well. And then eventually I see it, I'll give it a shot. So I was able to do this one, I will finish that one. It's not because I had a little confidence.
That's good to know, like, when you just know it's not working out, you gotta walk away for a while. I mean, years.
Yep.
That's okay. I love the light.
Oh, okay. That meeting is from Laurel, Ohio. I've done, the day I went, I collected images, subject matter. I've probably done that 1.5 hour trip. I probably got 8 to 10 different pages from material I found from that. The light was just right. In fact, those railroad tracks there are, this is part of that scene. You walk up, stand on the track somewhere, and you'll see this. It's finding the right situation to capture it. That's what I live for.
Seems to me, playing with light and how it fits your subject. That seems to come across very strongly.
You put your finger on it. The light is my friend. The right light, anything can look good. But the light is going to move. Lighting director, cinematographer, light is really the thing that create something that's really great, something that's more.
Like more afternoon and morning. Like you can kind of see different kinds of.
I like both times, but I'm so lazy I don't get up early enough to sign up in the morning usually. So most of mine is late afternoon. Yeah, I like winter, late fall, winter, or early springtime. Green leaves on the trees, you see.
You catch that when it's like a snow, it's like the next morning, it's bright sunshine with a really blue sky, it's blinding.
You see that's from the yard side.
Dan, the painting that's just to your right on the easel, I remember you talking about putting that together and putting the elements together. Can you just talk real quick about how you decided
Okay.
what your decisions were on that?
This particular painting, and was from a recent gallery around in my car taking pictures. In this situation, Actually, you literally have my phone in my hand, and I'm driving in the country. I tried to get away from civilization as much as I can. More primitive the road, the better. Because you'll find interesting things there. And I went by this farm. It's a big, huge farm. I couldn't put my finger on it. I'm still driving slowly, but I'm driving. I take a picture. I said, "There's something there." Computer screening. I was mesmerized by the door and the distortion of the door in this window. If you haven't noticed, part of my subject matter has a lot to do with rectangles. I don't know why. Bricks. There's hundreds of rectangles. Windows, door, everything. Rectangles, rectangles. What I liked about it, I actually zeroed in on this scene of the picture. I flipped the image, but going the other way wasn't this design-wise wasn't good. I put the door over on the right-hand side. What I liked about it is I wanted the eye to come in like this, go down, and catch this door, fall up here, and here, and kind of keep you in the painting. But as I got toward the end, I was dissatisfied. I said, "It's nothing that this was too open here. There wasn't anything to slow your eye down." So I said, "Well, let's put something there." So I took this cement block and put it there. Because now as you're coming in from right to left, the light kind of puts you down here, and you momentarily hit this thing and it pops up. Me, that made for a better painting. I was happy. Sometimes you can find a solution, sometimes you don't.
Anything from Sedona? It's breathtaking.
It is breathtaking. I thought about it.
It's kind of overwhelming.
Yeah,
So many beautiful areas.
It's already beautiful. So what could I do other than that might paint it kind of mental? My wife and I did this probably 10 times. It's gorgeous. I remember the first time I went to Sedona, we were on our way to the Grand Canyon. And we stopped in Sedona. We were so taken by the beauty of Sedona, we said, "For this, we're staying there." Eventually, I think we wanted to make it another vacation, but in Grand Canyon is spectacular. It's so big, it's hard to comprehend. Grand Canyon, you stand up and look into it. In Sedona, you're inside of it looking out. Yeah.
Ever go to Monument Valley?
Yes, one of my favorite places. The old cowboy movies, you know, I'm sure there were no cowboys around there. But I wait for them to go in. Yeah, I think I must
Thank
be
you.
up.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Yes.
Again, I think that we all get 2 credit hours for this.
Thank you for coming out.